So today I'm going to do a walkthrough on how to do a cam belt on a Vauxhall Astra 2-litre turbo ecotec petrol. First of all, you get the car in. The garage is a bit small, so I can't quite get it in, but first of all we take off the driver's side wheel. We remove the airbox, which I've already partially done before starting the video. Take off the Jubilee clip at the top, remove the sensor wire there, take the panel off the front, lift this out. Holding it in is a T30 Torx, which holds, if you can see it, on to the back clip there. That removes that out of the way. Then it gives you access to the side cam belt cover. We're going to need to remove the 10mm bolt at the back here and the Jubilee clip holding on the front, which is M7 7mm. Take this Jubilee clip off to remove the what they call the top hat intercooler hose. We'll get that out of the way and then we'll carry on and show you some more. Okay, so now I've removed the 10mm bolt at the back and the 7mm Jubilee clip on the front. You need to remove this hose here, which is a breather hose that's connected to the bottom. It's the large one. Let's take that off. Then down here you have the auxiliary belt. We need to remove that. I will get a torch for you now so you can see a little easier. Okay, so back with the torch. As you can see there, there's a 15mm, just here is a 15mm nut. You remove that anti-clockwise. There's a locating pin. I'm not sure if I can get the camera light on it. There's a locating pin here. When this comes round, you need to put a pin in there to hold the tensioner out of the way. So there we have Charlie helping. Say hello, Charlie.
I can't see something.
Can't see something? Okay. So if you do hear a little voice in the background,
Dad.
it's my son Charlie.
Dad.
Yes, mate?
My friends see Daddy.
As with all of us, we, or most of us, we have kids at home and we're trying to do this at home. So yeah, just excuse Charlie in the background there. We will cut back to him every now and again. But as I said, we'll get this auxiliary belt off and then we'll come back to the video. Okay, so the belt is now off.
Okay.
Tension is there. You now need a female Torx, which is an E torque. It's an E10, and if you can see that, it's an E10, and that undoes this top cover here. I'll get that done and come back to you now. Okay, so once you've removed those two bolts, which I have there, this cover just simply lifts off, revealing your cam belt. Then we need to go underneath the car, or sorry, into the driver's side wheel arch and remove the cover down there. So to gain access to this, we need to take these poppers off here.
Dad, why are you looking down?
A couple of bolts underneath there. Remove this inner wheel arch out of the way, and that'll give you access to the bottom pulley.
Look! Look, Dad.
Oh yeah.
Look off.
Okay, so going back to these push clips, they are actually called push clips for a reason. Basically, there's, look inside once you clean the hole, there's a little plug. You need to push that pin in to get the pin out. Once you've done that, you'll need a trim tool remover like this. It simply goes underneath and lifts out. Once you remove these clips, make sure you locate the push pin here, because you're going to have to push that back through when you reuse them. If you lose those clips, if you lose the pin in the center, then the clip will not work. So now I've removed those clips, we then need to go underneath the vehicle here, and you have two Torx, and they are, if I can get it in the light, T20 Torx. You need to remove those two. So I've removed those, and they're in my hand. Just here is another T-torque, T20 again, to remove that one, which then drops that inner cowling out. Inner cowling is loose. You now need to come round to here on the outside of the bumper and undo these two again, which are the same size. Okay, so back underneath the vehicle, you have once the inner wheel arch is completely removed, this cover that protects here is completely removed. You will see the two horns and the radiator. On the side of the radiator here is a drain bung. It's a screwdriver. I suggest use the biggest screwdriver that will fit in there. Don't use a small one and hope to get away with it. What happens with these is they round off. But you need to drain the water system, because obviously we're going to be doing a cam belt and water pump. So we need to remove this, pull it out, get yourself a nice bucket. The missus isn't going to be too happy I'm using the mop bucket, but I will buy her a new one once I've put the antifreeze in it. So you know, needs must at this time. So yeah, so basically pull the bucket underneath, get your big screwdriver, undo that. And then also go up on top of the car, go over to your water tank, undo the top off your water tank to allow the air to pressurise out. This way, when you start to flow, it will, once you start the water to flow, it will flow out nice and get rid of all the water there for you. Okay, so back underneath the car, I've undone this bleed screw here, and water flows out the back. You do need quite a bucket on a bit of an angle, because it tends to go here, there and everywhere. You can undo that all the way out. Obviously the faster out you go, the more flow you have. Okay, so once you've drained the water out and your water's in your bucket, you come round. What you need to do, need to put a jack underneath the engine. Don't worry about this little oil on the sump. We will be replacing this sump. That'll be another video. But we need to put a jack under here to support the engine up. You need to use a block of wood on top of the jack so it doesn't crease the sump in. And then we need to jack it up slightly, take the top engine mount off, which I'll do now. Okay, so the jack is now underneath the vehicle, supporting the engine. Up to the top, you have 3 bolts on the mount to the engine and 3 bolts to the chassis. These bolts are E14, if you can see that. E14 torques, female torque on top of there, and we'll get the engine mount off. Okay, now, so with those bolts removed, it's always advised, or I advise, I mean you can do it your way, but I always like to keep the engine mount bolts together, so I put them up on the shield there. The rest of the bolts I have over on a side in a magnetic tray. So you lift that off, there's that. So now that's off, we now need to lower the engine down slightly by lowering the jack, and that will give us access to the bottom pulley. It will bring the bottom pulley into sight here, so I'll do that now. Okay, so now you need a E10 torque. We've lowered the jack, now brought the crank pulley into line. Need to zap these ones out. I'll try and do this one-handed. 2, 3, 4. Now take note on the crankshaft pulley here. There is a little, I don't know if you can see it, there's a little dimple here, and that is on the crank pulley inside. So it is a locating dowel. So you just need to make sure that when you take it off, it goes back into that same place. Okay, so now underneath the vehicle you can see the, sorry, I'll try and keep the camera at the same angle. You can now see the lower half of the cam cover. There's E-torques around it. you need to undo them to take off this cam cover itself, the lower cam cover. Okay guys, sorry I got ahead of myself slightly. So going back to this tensioner that's down here, what you need to do is you rotate it anti-clockwise to release the belt, which takes the tension off of it, and then you need to allow it to go back to stop, and then you need to undo it to take the bolt out. Once you've done that, then that will give you good access to this other e-torque, which is, I don't know if you can see it, the other e-torque, which is down here. Sorry about the camera angle, I am trying to keep it as straight and still as possible for you guys so you can see what I'm doing. But yeah, without taking that off, you won't access this bolt down here, which hopefully you can see where my finger is there. But yeah, I'll get that done, get this off, and then we'll have a look at the cam belt itself. Okay, so I've now undone that bolt. This cover then slides forward and comes off. This is your lower timing belt cover, which we'll just place over the top of there for the minute, just so that we can know where it is. And then this reveals the cam belt kit itself. The water pump is here. You have two idler pulleys either side. So on the top cam you have exhaust and inlet, and you have two timing marks on both, so you have one on each. So this one here where you see the arrow, that's the exhaust timing mark, and over here where you see this one, and here's a mark on there as well, this is the inlet timing mark. Now what we need to do, we need to rotate the crank forward to bring these up to TDC, which is, you have one here for the exhaust and you have one here for the inlet there. And then down on the lower crank pulley, once these come round, we can check that the lower crank pulley is in its position as well. What I do suggest once you've done that is you can lock these cams in by having a tool to go in there, which locks them in place still, or if you are confident that you've got the timing marks bang on, what I tend to do is you use a bit of Tipex. Charlie, what are you doing, mate? You dropping stuff? Okay, as you can see, the garage is quite full. We normally do this work outside, but at home under the carport. But we've taken the carport down, so we're squeezed into the garage at the minute. But yeah, so you rotate this round. I then Tipex here, Tipex here, Tipex there, Tipex there, and then I do one through the middle, which I'll show you guys in a minute. And then basically that just, when you take the belt off, you know that they are in the right position. And then it's, when you take it off and you put it back together, provide, you've got a reference point to go back to make sure they're exactly in the right position. If you get these wrong, it will cause it can cause the valves to touch the piston itself as the piston comes up. But once the cam belt's done and it's on and it's tightened and it's all tensioned up and everything's good, what we then do is we rotate the lower crank pulley 2 full revolutions, and then that will bring these into one full turn. These then should line back up here, and the crank pulley should line back up into that timing mark. If that is done, then your timing's bang on. You check your tension's good, and then you can start the vehicle. But I'll go through this now just so that you guys can see it, and hopefully it makes sense. Okay, so back to it now. I've just done the timer marks at the top and bottom. I've done the timer mark through the middle there. I've also put extra dots in there. I like to go belt and braces on it. I like to know that I have more than one reference point to make sure that they all line up when the cam belt goes back on. As you can see, this is a GM original belt. The car's done 127,000 miles, and the service history says it's had a stamp by a non-Vauxhall garage for the cam belt. But looking at it, I've done the reference on the dates on the belt. The belt hasn't been changed, so that garage has actually told a bit of a lie there. Then you come down to the bottom. You do have a timing mark here and here, which is lined up, and I've also put an extra one from here to here, so I know that they're bang on. So now what we have to do is basically we undo this torque here, which is a T30. To rotate the crank at the bottom, it's a M17, so there's a 17mm spanner goes on there to lower that. But this is a T30, and then you have a 6mm Allen key in there for the tensioner. I'll get a better video once I've taken the belt off, but what you tend to do is you undo this, you rotate. See if I can get you in a bit closer, it might make a little bit more sense. Okay, so that's better. So T30 torque in there, and then this is your 6mm Allen key, which you just rotate anti-clockwise, which then moves this out of the way. This is your water pump, this and this is your 2 guide pulleys. But yeah, you need to undo that, slide it off of them, take the 2 guide pulleys off, and then pull the belt off. I suggest doing it that way rather than some people just like to undo that and pull it off the top. But I always find if you pull it off the top, chances are you will end up turning these cams. Okay, going back to this tensioner, I've got the tensioner off. I needed to make a correction in the video. I did say it was a T30 torque for that, but it's actually not. It's a T40 torque. Yes, I don't know if you guys can see it. It's turning around the right way. T40 torque. Now, they are so bloody tight. So obviously this is the ratchet I used. But what I did is, because they're quite shallow, the actual head is quite shallow in there. I put the torque on there with the ratchet, and then I've used a jack handle bar off of my engine crane over there to slide over it, almost, to slide over that. To then give me leverage to get it round. What you will find is if you try and just do it without that, you will probably shred this. So I would say use whatever ratchet you got, keep your hand, sort of your left hand pushed in on it, and then if you're right-handed, use your right hand to crank it over. But yeah, so, and then you need to take off the 2 idler pulleys. So you've got one here and one here. These again are E10. I don't know if you can see that in anything. E10 torques. Oh god, it's getting it wrong again. Well, they're E12 torques then. Sorry about this, guys. Yeah, they're E12. Normally I have a look through what size they are beforehand and then come back to the video for you guys. But obviously, yeah. So we go E12, and E12 fits on there nicely, so that's fine. So yeah. So E12 torques, 2 of them, undo those, take them off, and then we'll go get onto the water pump and remove that. Okay, so just want to make you guys aware of these 2 guides that I've taken off of this cam belt. Obviously this side and this side. This being exhaust side fronts of the car. You'll notice that it's got a collar at the back, and then on the inlet side, meaning bulkhead of the car, it's got the guides at the front, so make sure you get them the right way round. But now we're ready just to slide the belt off. The belt comes off quite easy. Let's just zoom you out slightly so you can get a better angle of it. So yeah, slide that out, cam belt's off, discard that for the minute, and then we have our water pump. Okay, so our water pump are actually held on by Allen keys. They are turn pumps, so they can go in a few different ways, which I'll show you more about afterwards. Okay, so going on to this water pump, because they Vauxhall decide to make them so they can swivel around. Some cars they use the water pump as the tensioner, and they just have a guide. But obviously on this is not the case, we have a tensioner. So what I always do on these is basically mark from the hole straight up, and then I try and do like a 4 o'clock mark across there, so that when I take that out and replace it with the new one, I know that the hole in the top needs to be facing this mark here. So as long as that's done, then that will it'll be in the right place. Okay, going on to the water pump itself. The actual you're going to need an Allen key like this, and it's a 6mm Allen key to undo the bolts. There are 3 bolts. Mark out where they come from, and where they which hole they come out of, because sometimes they are slightly longer or slightly shorter on each side. It's a variant of different engines, so I always like to place them down so I know where they've come from, and we can put them back in the correct place. Last thing we want to do is put a bolt that is too long in the block there, crank it up, and then actually crack the block or something daft along those lines. So yeah, when you take them out, just place them down so you know which order they come out in, and if they are all the same size, then obviously it doesn't matter when they go back in. But sometimes you will find different variants of vehicle where those bolts will be different lengths there. Okay, so having removed the water pump bolts, this is the way the way I've placed them down. So this is obviously the top, this is the left, this is the right, sorry, and this is the left. Now with the water pump itself, they do have on these water pumps a slight, if I put it out, I've pulled it out, I've got my bucket underneath to catch the water. So they do have this this guide piece here. So what I've done, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I've actually marked the first hole, the first mark rather is the is where the hole is on the water pump, and then this here is where that recess bit sticks out, just so you get that out. And then what you need to do is sometimes it will leave the rubber gasket seal behind, which obviously you want to take that off as well, make sure that's nice and clean. Then we'll go down in, we'll give that a nice clean, drain some of the water out, soak it up with a bit of tissue, clean it all around, and then look to replace the water pump there. Okay, so going back to it now, I've cleaned off all the old silicone that was on there. What I tend to use is a bit of Henry cloth there. You can get it in a reel. I've got a few bits kicking around, so we tend to sand that off, clean all the bits up, dry it out. I'll give it a blowout in a minute with the airline, so that's done, and then I'm ready to install the new water pump. Okay, so on this particular vehicle I will be using a Caricool, well, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, water pump, which is basically, it's an OEM replacement. So in the box we have a new gasket, some jargon about how to do it, some instructions, and then obviously we have a brand new pump. Alright, so that's that. So I'll put that to one side. We will also be using a Continental timing belt kit, and it's a full kit. It comes with all everything you need is in there. It's all nicely packaged. You know, your belt's in there, so it isn't got damaged or anything along those lines. And then you pop open the bottom of the box, and then you know, you got your other bits and pieces that are in there. So yeah, so we'll just get the water pump sealed up, get that back on, and we'll go from there. So everybody has asked the question what sort of gasket sealer I use. I use Loctite, and it's 515 gasket maker. And the reason why I like this Loctite so much for a gasket maker is because it doesn't dry out, and what it does is it will only go off hard, and I mean it goes off really bloody hard, when no air can get to it. So I will be running a ring around here, putting the O-ring over the top of the gasket, and then placing it in and bolting it up. Now, as soon as it's completely metal to metal and no air can get into it, this stuff starts to go off and locks off, which you know, this is pretty much what Vauxhall do anyway. When Vauxhall do the heads, they use their own stuff, and obviously they brand it GM, but as I used to work for Vauxhall, I know that this is pretty much the same stuff, other than the Vauxhall stuff is branded GM. So yeah, this is what you're looking for if you're going to do it. You can use silicone. I do know people that use. I'll grab some silicone just so you can see what stuff I'm looking at here. So I mean, people do use black gasket, you know, and it's RTV silicone sealer. It's oil resistant, and it's you know, sensor safe. You can use it on exhaust and all sorts of stuff. People use this for the sumps and stuff like that. I don't personally like to use this when it comes to water pumps, and the only reason for that is because if you get it around here and for whatever reason it goes into the thread hole, what you then end up doing is you end up packing out the thread hole. So as you actually crank it down and tighten it up, the silicone's actually in behind the thread hole itself. So this can be used if need be, but personally I don't like to use it. I'm not to say it's the you know, it can't be used, because obviously it can, Just, you know, I've been doing this a long time now, and I know that that's not the best stuff to use. So like I say, I would go with this. We'll get the GM Loctite 515. You can get it on Amazon, you can get it on eBay, you can get it from most hardware stores. Some places you will have to order it in. Tub like that is about 22 quid, and it never goes off, so you don't have to seal the lid or anything like that. It's, you know, it's always you just squirt it and away it comes. So all right, hope that helps. Right, so I'll get back to the video. Sorry for all these ums. It's hard trying to... Normally I'm in front of the camera and I'm trying to hold the camera, so, you know. Right, so we will run this around there and then put the pump back in. I'll come back to you shortly. So the cam belt itself, obviously the new cam belt I've got here is a Continental cam belt. But what you need to do is, this is why you don't discard the old belt. So you need to make sure it's the same. Alright, so you need to check that it's the same, and you need to put it, I can't do it one-handed, but you need to pull it out over the top and count the teeth, or at least make sure it's the same length. As there are a couple of different variants of the cam belt itself. But yeah, so once that's done, and then you need to slide the cam belt in and under the thing. What I always suggest is to have the right in facing forward, so you know it's the right direction of travel. Some of these belts will have arrows on them. If they don't, I always suggest having the right in facing forward so it reads correct. And then yeah, we put it back together now. Get the tensioners in, put the idler pulleys in, and time it up. So when putting the belt back onto the car, you need to stick it on the lower pulley first. Put this idler in here. Run it round, leave it nice and loose, so as you can see it's nice and loose, and leave it up to here. And then you need to start working yourself around this side with the tensioner itself. So clip it onto the water pump. Obviously you will have a bit of slack in it at the bottom here, which we'll have to take out. But yeah, so you want it to be tight on the exhaust side and loose on the inlet side, because obviously the tensioner takes up the tension. Okay, so back on it now, the new cam belt's on. Back on the vehicle. They're a bit of a pain to get in and line them up. You can see all our timer marks are back on where they need to be. I've rotated the engine, 2 full turns on the bottom crank, which brings 1 full turn on the top. I've checked for tension, that's good. And I've checked down on the tensioner down there, which means it's in the right position, so everything's good there. We'll just fire the car up, make sure everything starts, and then start putting it back together in the reverse order of the way it come apart. Okay, so there's the vehicle running. Put a little bit of water in it, let the water pump come up, and we started the vehicle up just to make sure that it's all working as it should do, and all the timing's bang on. No issues there whatsoever. Running nice. Absolutely perfect. Okay then guys, so we're all done now. The car's back together, it's running up nicely. We've topped up the coolant. We've allowed the car to run and build up to temperature. The thermostat's opened and the coolant fans kicked in. When we started the car up to have it and having it running, we would come into the car first of all. We would turn the heaters on hot maximum. We would turn the fan on to maximum, and we would put the vents open to your face. You'd allow the car to run up until all the heat, until the heaters are nice and warm and the fans kicked in. Once that is completely done, you then turn it off. I always suggest leaving the car for about half an hour with the engine off, just to come back, check that your coolant level is bang on. You've not got too much or too less of coolant inside. To make sure that level's bang on correct. If it is, put the cap back on and then take the vehicle for a road test. I hope this video has been informative, and I hope it helps somebody out to be able to take on the challenge of doing it yourself. Normally this job would cost around about £500–600 at a garage, but if you do feel confident, you could do it yourself, and hopefully save yourself some money. If you do like this video guys, please give it a thumbs up. Please like, share and subscribe if you haven't already. I will try and post a video a week if I can, although due to work commitments it has been you know, YouTube's took a bit of a back burner at the minute. I do other videos such as mechanicals on cars, vans and motorcycles, and also camper conversions. So please take a look at my other vehicles, and I hope this helps, and if you could give it a thumbs up, it helps no end. Thank you very much, guys, and drive safe.